Hi, good evening, everyone. And I, Dr. Priyanka Mahajan, Secretary of Bombay Psychiatric Society, on behalf of the entire Bombay Psychiatric Society, welcome you all to this interesting session on yoga and mental health. We've all been speaking a lot about yoga and mental health being connected to each other. So today we are going to discuss. We have two experts in this field. One of them being Dr. Kiran Chandilia and Dr. Nutan. To begin with, we will begin the session with Dr. Kiran Chandilia. I am sure all of us know her. She needs no introduction,
Good
but
evening.
she's an MD psychiatry with obviously a big brain because she's a gold medalist there. And she's won the TISA, which is Torrance Young Scholar Award in 2008. She has been the student of yoga since 2009, and she's inculcating yogic practices along with her mainstream psychiatry since then. So I welcome Dr. Kiran to start with her presentation. She would like to speak about yoga and mental health to all of us.
Thank you so much, Priyanka, for this introduction. And thank you again, BPS, for the opportunity of letting me speak on one of my favorite topics. Just give me a minute till I share the screen. Huh. So I'm going to be talking about yoga and mental health. Now, when yoga started about so many years ago, it never started for weight loss and it almost never started for control of diabetes and hypertension. These are things that we are now seeing. Yoga also has benefits in weight loss and in diabetes. It almost always started for mind control. So today we will see that, just a minute. That is yoga applicable to mental health at all? When we talk about, is it just some mumbo jumbo that we keep talking about? Or does it have some relevance to today's modern day psychiatry? If it does, then how does it work? Is there any evidence? Is there a practical way to inculcate yoga in the clinic setting? And then some guidelines for yoga and mental health. We only have a 20 to 30-minute waiting period, 20 to 30-minute time slot. So I will not be elaborating on anything. It is just going to be touch and go. Yoga is a very, very big topic. So let's look at the very definitions of yoga. The Gita says that yoga karmasu kaushalam, or excellence in action, is yoga. Uh, there's another definition again in the Gita that says samatvam yog uchate, or yog is equanimity, stability, balance, harmony, equipoise. And Patanjali Yoga Sutra describes yoga as yoga chitta vritti nirodha, or is the cessation of fluctuations of the mind. So the yogis and the Buddhists, while they were going through the meditation process, I think they came across a lot of problems with concentration. They came across a lot of problems with sleep. They also encountered their own frustrations and anxieties and depression. And over a period of time, it is still an evolving science. Over a period of time, they have, through self experimentation, they have come up with a line of work that works into their mental health or their mental well being, and they're able to get into a state of meditation. So, what exactly is yoga? At one level, we can say that there are techniques in yoga. So, it's a very technique oriented thing. That is why it's not a religious thing. And because it's a technique oriented thing, it can be practiced by anybody, irrespective of what their basic belief systems are. It is also a set of psychology and attitudes that we need to practice. So, yoga has an complete yoga psychology that our patients, because of the ethnicity that we belong to, are very open to inculcating those aspects of psychology rather than the psychoanalysis and things that we study in the Western patient. It is a philosophy of life, and it is something that we choose to live a lifestyle with. So, at various levels, yoga can be inculcated, and it's not just the 1 hour that you spend on the yoga mat. There's a lot more to yoga than just your yoga, the yoga asanas that they do. Now, the yogis divide our being into 5 dimensions. So they say we have a physical body, which is the Annamaya Kosh. They say we have an energy body, which is the Pranmaya Kosh. They say we have our mind, the Manomaya Kosh. We have an intellect that even goes above our mind and decides what to choose and what not to choose. Very similar to how cognitive behavior therapy, we can choose a line of thinking. And then we have the spirit or the soul, which is the Anandmaya Kosh. So whenever we have action in yoga, there is action on all spheres of our existence: the body, the mind, the energy system, the intellect, and the soul. So yogis were about the first to discover the mind body connect, and they figured that it's very difficult to control the mind, so we can start with controlling the body. So in yoga, the direction of movement is always from outside to inside, and it's always from very gross things to subtle things, because you can catch hold of your leg, but how do you catch hold of your mind? So if your mind is becoming calmer by catching hold of your leg, we'll start with that first. That was the ideology. Now, this is Dr. Rishi Vivekananda. He's a very famous psychiatrist in Australia who has done extensive work in yoga. Later on, he took to sannyas. And he has this very beautiful book. Those of you who are interested, I would recommend. It's called Practical Yoga Psychology. And in yoga too, we have various personality types. Now, these personality types may be dynamic people or very action oriented people. They may be very emotional people, like how artists are. They can be highly intellectual and like to rationalize, understand things. And they could be psychic in terms of being a little more intuitive. And then these personality types can be intermixed with different gunas. The gunas are sattva, or the calm, pure gun, rajas, or the very highly ambitious, aggressive, achievement oriented population, and tamas, which is slothful. So all of us, or even our patients, can be categorized into various personality types according to yoga, that whether this person has a higher emotionality content, or whether this person can actually work very hard but can't sit and read and can't sit and intellectualize things. And then in that sense, the yoga prescription for that person is very individualized, where you decide that, okay, this person has this kind of a personality, therefore he needs to take up these practices. Which is why initially we had a guru shishya parampara, where the guru would decide that this shishya is capable of this sort of an exercise because he understood the shishya. Now, Ashtanga yoga means 8 limbs of yoga. So Patanjali Sutra describes yoga as Ashtanga yoga. And the yoga could be external or Bahirang, or internal or Antarang. Of course, the Bahirang yoga comes before the internal yoga. So first you control your behavior, then you control your body, you control your breath, and then you go on to your mind. So what it consists of is our behavior with people outside of us, our own personal self-discipline, our bodily postures, pranayam, which is unique to yoga, certain breathing techniques. And then we go on to techniques of concentration, meditation, and things like that. Let's look at each one of these, and let's look which parts of them are applicable, especially when we are taking up psychotherapy. So yamas, now they can be over 100 yamas that we can have. Yamas are what? They're just attitudes when we interact with the world outside. So there are some attitudes that yoga has adopted. They've only adopted 5. Okay. Non-violence, being honest, truthful, non-stealing. Now, at one point we may not actually steal, but sometimes we take up ideas from people and things like that. Brahmacharya again is a very, very misunderstood concept, but it actually means non-excess or avoiding overindulgence in whatever thing. So this is also something we understand works beautifully with our patients, and non-possessiveness or aparigraha. Now, what yoga insists is that whichever attitude you take up, let us say you take up the attitude of non-violence, this has to be practiced in your thoughts, in your verbal behavior and in your actions. Only then it is a complete practice. So we can pick up any one thing and what is more suited to the patient and give that as a form of therapy to patients. Why are these attitudes picked up? It's not because it has a religious connotation, but because it is something that reduces conflict in our own mind. Now, if we want to spare our mental energies and focus them into one particular activity, the yogis wanted to focus into their own self and self-realization. But let us say we want to focus our activity into our work or into excel in any one field that we choose to be. So mental conflict takes away our mental energy. So if we can reduce the amount of conflict. So these practices can be taken up, although most people assume that this is preaching, but actually easy to practice. And once we start the practice, they really protect us from a lot of external conflict. Because once you decide that I'm going to be honest, a lot of conflicts are over. What are niyamas? Niyamas are personal disciplines. So personal disciplines like purity, being contented. Now, the Western philosophy and the Eastern philosophy are different because our value system is little different. In the West, it's very, very achievement oriented. There is determination, willpower, goals that you set, and you have to achieve the goals. But something like COVID has taught us that when you cannot control the external situations, people who are extremely achievement motivated and want to control life then become extremely upset and anxious and irritable, aggressive. So contentment, the Eastern philosophy, on the other hand, promotes values such as contentment, such as forbearance, that you tolerate a difficult situation without offering mental resistance to it. Slightly different set of values, again, works very beautifully with our patients. Tap, for example, is self-discipline. Now, when we think of tap, a yogi doing tap, we imagine very severe austerities. But any form of activity scheduling and self-discipline becomes tap. I would like to share with you that we are going to enter the Shravan month from the next month is the Shravan month. So across India, because no agriculture happens, ours was a very agricultural society, because no agriculture happens during these rainy seasons. So across India, they would practice Chaturmas or 4 months of sadhana. Now, our own counterparts, the Vedas or the Ayurvedic doctors, they practice Chaturmas sadhana, in which they wake up early in the morning and they start studying their texts. They study Charak Samhita for about 2 hours. They also decide not to smoke and drink. They impose certain restrictions on themselves just to fortify this sadhana. And this is tapas. So for 4 months, you can imagine if an entire community sits down and studies together, what is the quality that is produced out of that work? Swadhyay is a very, very important concept in yoga, which is very amenable to psychotherapy. And I'm going to be using Swadhyay. We've seen even in Alcoholics Anonymous, there's surrender to God or surrender to a higher authority because there's only so much that we can control. So this is again a very beautiful meditation called Swan meditation. SWAN is an acronym that stands for, S stands for our strengths, W stands for our weaknesses, A stands for our various aims, and N stands for our needs. And this meditation is not a meditation where you sit down, close your eyes, try and levitate kind of meditation. This is a meditation where you sit with a diary on a weekly basis. And you become a mirror to yourself without justification. You look at yourself very observantly. You make all your strengths in one page, keep all your weaknesses in one page. Look at things that you would need for now. What are your needs and what are your aims? Do you have long-term aims, short-term aims? Reassess the aims. Which aims are realistic and which aims are unrealistic? Then the Swan meditation asks us to pick up one strength. Let us say so we pick up similar strengths and weaknesses. So let us say this month the strength I practice is willpower, and the weakness that I work upon is procrastination. Okay, so I choose an activity for myself. Let us say my willpower, I decide that for 1 month I give up sweets, and the activity I choose for myself is whatever for what I do for delaying my procrastination. So as a person, whether we do it as a therapy in clinics and we give patients a swan meditation and a swan review, or whether we do it for ourselves as a weekly diary exercise, a weekly exercise for personal growth and personal development, it's very easy to see that how a person can become more and more functionally fitter as one becomes very directed and dedicated towards personal growth. So this is one thing I use very often. The swan meditation I use very often as a part of psychotherapy with patients. And it's a very logical thing because the patient himself or herself decides what strength they want to pick up, what weakness, what aim they want to. The only thing is activity scheduling and committing to that aim, very similar to what we do in behavior therapy. Sankalp is another thing that we say is a resolve. Okay. Now, when we take up a resolve in yoga, usually we repeat the resolve at night and we repeat the resolve first thing in the morning. And they say that we are closer to our subconscious minds, and whatever we repeat at that point of time before sleeping and first thing in the morning, we tend to do the resolve. Now, we can take up whatever resolve. Let us say our resolve is that um, I am deficient in a particular aspect of my medicine, and towards the end of 4 months, I want to become proficient in this field of medicine. So I work to study towards it. This is my resolve, and I repeat it to myself regularly. So we can see that how it works for patients, therapy, and for ourselves. Now we come to asanas. Asanas is the most known part of yoga, and yet it is highly misunderstood. So people think asanas are these weird postures that yogis get into. I'll come to the fact that how asanas are different from exercises. So asana, the definition is sthira sukha asanam, or we can say stability. Now, sthirta or balance and stability can be static. In static asanas, like let us say Vajrasan, like how you see PM Modi sitting in Vajrasan, or it could be dynamic, whereas you have postures like Surya Namaskar, and with varying postures, you have dynamic stability. Balance is also not only that, they say that this kind of an asana promotes balance, and the balance is both physical and emotional. So you tend to maintain equanimity in varying circumstances, hot, cold, praise, or somebody does criticism, or adverse situations, or even balance in very, very high situations, as you put yourself through various postures and establish yourself in those postures. What is important about these postures is that they have to be practiced with sehajta or ease. So you don't force yourself into a posture, you listen to your body. Which is why, and there's a lot of awareness, there's a lot of body and breath awareness. So each part you become aware about more than the asana that you practice. So let us say I have to practice my wrist movement. It's a very simple movement that I have to practice. If I'm doing it in the yogic way, I will totally imagine what this movement is like with completeness. Even if my wrist does not go so well, I will imagine that I'm being able to do it as well as possible. I will coordinate it with my breath, and after the asana, I will observe the changes that I've seen in this area of my wrist. Which is why asanas work beautifully with patients of psychosomatic complaints, because it increases body awareness. And as it increases body awareness, it increases their linking of psychosomatic complaints to certain states of mind and how they can calm them down. So, I often get asked this question, that is yogasana any different from exercise? I'm a big proponent of exercise. I do believe that exercise has excellent antidepressant effects, especially in mild to moderate depression. I myself run very regularly, and I prescribe running to patients because I believe it works very beautifully. But in spite of that, there are some, and by the way, NIMHANS has done one study where they compared yoga to walking. for mental health, and they found that yogasanas or yoga in general was a lot more superior to walking. So they've done this study. Thankfully, it's there on page. Now, yoga normally focuses on the spine, whereas most exercise focus on limbs. Yoga insists on awareness in postures. There is no insistence on awareness, except if you're doing martial arts or something. There's no insistence on awareness in other forms of exercise. Yoga gets into a posture and then you stabilize that posture and you relax into the posture. Whereas most other exercises are more dynamic in nature. And again, yoga, the aim is mental health. And here the aim becomes weight loss and strength building. And for exercise, the aims are a little different than what they are for yoga. So, and not only that, there are various kinds of activities. There is one thing called Sukshma Yogic Kriya, which is very gentle, like I said, like this, neck movements, shoulder movements. Sukshma Yogic Kriya that can be practiced by people of all age groups, that has been practiced in people with severe illness like breast cancer, etc., hospitalized patients, and they have seen faster recovery with yogasanas in these various patients. Let's come to some of the asanas that are known to enhance mental health. These asanas, the first thing I'm trying to show you is the series of asanas like Surya Namaskar, Bhujangasana. You can see how much they are working on the spine. Let's look at Bhujangasana. Throughout the day, whatever we do, whether we study, we work, we're always bending forward. And as a result, we lose our cervical lordosis, we lose the lumbar lordosis over a period of time. And Bhujangasana, while working on the spine, actually works on these areas. Not only that, it also is known to work on certain chakras that enhance willpower. We will not go into that aspect because I have no proof for it. But not having said that, a lot of patients with anxiety face neck spasms and they face chronic backache. And these can be relieved by postures such as Shashankasana, the first pose, the hare pose, and Bhujangasana, which is an exact reverse of that pose. In fact, the first pose is extremely relaxing. So after a day of hard work in the chair, if all of us also do the pose, it actually elongates our spine, it stretches our spine, and we are able to totally relax into the posture. It's very comforting. This posture we have used for students with ADHD and autism, along with breath control, and we know that it reduces anger and irritability in a person. This I'm talking about this asana. Okay. Now let's look at this one, which is the tree pose. If any one of you can imagine yourself standing on one leg with both your hands up, so this is a posture that requires balance. And as it requires balance, what also happens is it enhances focus, because suddenly you are out of your comfort zone. You are made to stand still in a posture that is difficult, where your center of gravity is shifted. So it's very good for students to enhance concentration. We see a lot of patients with anxiety who complain of giddiness. In the ENT circuits, it's called psychogenic vertigo. There's an entire term of psychogenic vertigo. Now, also, the balance issues, while our drugs like paroxetine, etc., reduce sensations of giddiness and things like this, benzodiazepines may actually worsen these sensations. One of the things that we forget is, for somebody who has a very sedentary lifestyle, the sense that starts to deteriorate is the sense of proprioception. And as proprioception deteriorates and you feel that the ground below you is not firm. So let us say, I understand claustrophobia in the air, or agoraphobia in the train. But also when you feel that the ground below you is not firm in a moving train, in a plane, people tend to feel intense anxiety and giddiness. Or when they feel they can't have support, they feel intense anxiety. And this particular pose works beautifully for balance. It is used as a part of OT for all patients of psychogenic vertigo. These are some inverse postures that again create an opposite blood flow from what we are usually used to doing, and again help promote well-being. They also work on thyroid. Sarvangasana is known to work on thyroid. I have put up this old lady's picture to show that we can also do a modified Sarvangasana, which is easy. So she uses a pillow under her, this is a pillow that she uses under her hips. She raises and she takes support of the thing. We have an inversion of the blood flow. The gases that are collected in the intestinal system, there's also an inversion there. It tends to promote pelvic health. And this is an extremely relaxing posture at the end of the day. So we need not just think of yoga as what we do in that half an hour, 1 hour during the yoga session. We can also think of yoga as small pockets, like we have done, let us say, some stretching in the morning, some pranayam in the morning. In the night when we are relaxing, we can consider some of these inverse postures on an empty stomach. Now I come to something which is very unique to yoga, which is pranayam, which is not a part of any other system of exercise. And this, they have created a great science out of it. I don't know how the yogis discovered, but they discovered that that contralateral halves of the brain control the other half of the body. And one connect between the mind and the body was the breath. Now they have decided that they have, over a period of self-experimentation and working on others, they say that when you breathe through the right nostril, it works on the Surya Nadi. Surya Nadi has Surya-like features or sun-like features. So it creates warmth, it's energizing, it's activating. Whereas when you breathe out, when you breathe from the left nostril, it creates Chandra Nadi. It activates the Chandra Nadi or Chandra-like features, which has, let us say, calming effects, emotional effects on the mind. And not only that, the Surya Nadi also promotes the sympathetic system, whereas the Chandra Nadi promotes the parasympathetic system. And the frequently understood pranayam of Anulom Vilom, where you alternate nostril breathing, where you breathe in from one nostril, breathe out from another, breathe in from one, breathe out from another, in a set ratio, tends to balance out the left and the right brain activity. It tends to balance out the sympathetic and the parasympathetic dominance, and these have been shown on fMRIs. So I am, so thankfully we have evidence. I think Nimhans is doing great work here in the yoga thing. This is another pranayam which works beautifully. So how we do this pranayam is, we can ask somebody to sit in a posture with a straight back. We can ask them to plug their ears, cover their eyes, and make a humming sound like mm. When you make a humming sound with your ears, eyes, everything closed, your senses closed, you experience a humming quality, a buzz like, bee-like buzzing quality in your head. And as you focus on this quality, it tends to create a lot of calming effect. This is very often used as a pre-meditative exercise. Because it's so short, it only takes 1 minute to take 10 such breaths. We have inculcated it as a pre-study routine for children with ADHD. Some children with autism enjoy this kind of a sensation and feel calmer with it. Even adults feel a relief in anger, tension, anxiety. Tends to improve concentration and memory, tends to improve migraines, and is effective in hypertension. So we can consider Bhramari Pranayam very easy to teach somebody, very easy to do it ourselves. And I really request that at night before sleeping, if you can do Bhramari Pranayam 10 times, do it like an experiment and see if it calms you down. If it works for yourself, you'll be more motivated to give it to patients. Now, basically what Pratyahara, now till pranayams, we were talking about the external aspect of yoga. And now we start directly controlling the mind. So in Pratyahara, what we do is the mind is all over the place. The mind is sometimes in the past, sometimes in the future, sometimes in certain fantasies, sometimes certain fears, sometimes in some memories. So, but the body and the breath are always in the now. So the first part of Pratyahara is withdrawing your mind from your senses and withdrawing your mind from these various preoccupations that have very little to do with your current life and coming into the now. And lot of mindfulness techniques like watching your breath, etc., have been adopted from mainstream yoga and are being used as a part of mindfulness based cognitive behavior therapy. So just breath awareness without trying to control the breath often switches off the mind from an overthinking mode to now. There is a very beautiful exercise in Pratyahara called Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is a guided meditation. Trust me, it is a lot superior to the progressive muscle relaxation that we have been taught by the West. Now, you do not sleep, but you can actually relax your body. The best thing is that Yoga Nidra is available like an app. So it can be easily downloaded and it can be given as an activity to a patient. Yoga Nidra can be used for very anxious patients, even for depressed patients, even for patients of insomnia, or for students who find their mind wandering and cannot find focus and concentration. It is very good for people who are perpetually sleep deprived or people who have, like, for example, if you have exam time and you cannot sleep more, then Yoga Nidra, they say 20 minutes of Yoga Nidra is equivalent to 2 hours of deep sleep. So even the sleep debt that you accumulate can be undone with Yoga Nidra. So I also recommend, because it's an app, it's so readily available and it's a guided meditation. Again, the app is in various languages. You have Hindi, English. The app is designed in a way that it does not have a religious connotation. So they will not use words like Om, etc. They will use a general language that will not bring about conflict in any persons, no matter what. And I am practicing in an area where patients from that I am patients. So my nearby communities are Gujaratis. We have Muslim patients and we have a strong Christian locality around that area. So I have people from all these three ethnicities, and all of them have adopted to these measures without a conflict in their mind. Similarly, there's another guided meditation called Antarmana, which works towards silencing the frequent obsessive nature of the mind that keeps ruminating from one thought to another, one thought to another. Again, available like an app. This again is a very beautiful book called Mind and Mind Management. There's an entire field of yoga called Raj Yoga, which devotes itself to mind management. Again, a book I recommend for those of you who are interested can read. Now we come to a point of concentration. So we have withdrawn our mind from the various distractions that we have, past, present, future, in engagement in various sensations. We brought it within. Now we want to channelize into something that we want to do. So Tratak or candle gazing is a very, very beautiful exercise in concentration. Again, excellent for students, excellent for patients who complain of cognitive difficulty, excellent for people who have sleep disturbances. So basically the exercise is that you sit in a posture with a straight back. You keep a candle or a diya and the level of the flame is at the level of your eye. And the first part of the exercise for a few minutes is that you stare in a dark room at the candle without blinking your eyes. You try not to swallow, you try not to move, you try not to scratch. You try and sit as still as possible, only for a few minutes, till your eyes start watering and it becomes very difficult to keep your eyes open. After that, you close your eyes and then you try and keep your concentration at the image of the flame that forms in the mind's eye. Sometimes the image forms, sometimes it doesn't form, it's a blank space. Sometimes you see a point of afterlight. It doesn't matter what happens. What is essential is that every time your mind wanders, you gently bring it back. You gently say, Mera man bhatak gaya, and you get it back. Because the exercise is only 5 to 7 minutes, And the effects are almost immediate. It can be used as it's normally used as a pre-meditative exercise, but it can easily be used as a pre-study exercise, an exercise before going off to sleep, an exercise before starting work. It can be done as a family, where the family can sit around the diya and the candle, and the entire family can be engaged, and it will benefit everybody from elderly to the young. So meditation is more spontaneous. We can practice up to concentration, and after that we get spontaneously involved in the process, very similar to how flow is. So dhyan is that. The only thing is then work feels effortless and work comes across with excellence. Do we have evidence that all this works? Yes. So there's a very beautiful article by Meera Balasubramanian, and she has done a meta-analysis of 110 studies on yoga. And there are most of these studies have been done by medical doctors and not by Ayurvedic practitioners and not by yogis or not by naturopaths.
नीचे ऊपर मत रखना, याद नहीं रहेगा.
Huh? And what they have found is that yoga works at various levels. We all know that it reduces cortisol, it improves immunity. But there are also studies to support that it increases the level of GABA, it increases the level of serotonin, increases the level of acetylcholine. It activates the prefrontal cortex. It tends to increase the vagal outflow. So the parasympathetic flow is increased, and therefore hypertension and anxiety are controlled better. A lot of neurotrophic factors are supported by yoga. It strengthens the immune system. So that is why it actually does a lot of neuromodulation, that they figured this out. So on the HPA axis, it is seen to reduce cortisol. When we look at the neurotransmitters, it increases GABA, glutamate, serotonin, and acetylcholine. Some neurotransmitters are reduced, like dopamine and norepinephrine. Some neurotrophic factors like BDNF are increased. Immunomodulatory, we've all been talking, I think there's a lot of study on the immunomodulatory role of yoga, done more by oncologists than by psychiatrists. Increased vagal outflow. And there are actual structural changes in the prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, amygdala seen after a period of yoga. Now, what is very important is this is also a therapy, which means that you have to do it at least for 3 months, at least for 40 minutes, and at least for 4 days in a week. You cannot have a random, aap ye kar lo, ye kar lo. It has to be a dedicated effort. And people see improvement. Now, in children, they say at the age of 8, the pineal gland starts to decay. And as it starts to decay, there's an onset of puberty. So the yogis actually claim that we can actually have a delay in decay of the pineal gland. Now, what is happening is, so the onset of puberty can be postponed. Why is this important? Because we have an earlier onset of puberty with all the hormonal changes and all the behavioral and emotional changes that come with it, at a younger age where the intellectual growth hasn't happened to that extent, where the maturity to regulate yourself is not to that much extent, which is why there's greater anxiety, depression, behavioral complaints in younger children. So this is also one thing we can think about. Of course, there is a definite work on cognition, sleep, attention. It has also been studied in negative symptoms of schizophrenia. Now, I'm going to just rush through the few pages. This is just to show you, impress upon you, that there are enough studies in the literature to support that yoga works in depression, that it works in anxiety, it works in eating disorder by increasing awareness, connection, the body-mind connect, understanding what is genuine hunger. It works in ADHD. ADHD, like for example, we can understand why it would work in ADHD, because what does yoga promise? It promises stability, it promises concentration. These are things that it promotes. It says that we are able to do this. So even in patients of schizophrenia, it has been shown to work in the negative symptoms. Now, what are the practical issues in yoga? I think we have more trained yoga therapists in the country than we have psychotherapists. most of these yoga therapists are actually, it's very easy to have a conversation. We only have to pick up the phone and we only have to tell them, see, I have a patient, he's dealing with this anxiety issues, all this is happening, and can you help them out? And you can actually say, we don't want a lot of deep meditation, we are scared he will break down into psychosis, just do little relaxation. We can give our inputs, and those people are, in fact, the yoga therapists themselves are doing a lot of study in terms of depression. Now, when we talk to them like this and when we explain to them the role of medicine, trust me, none of them tell the patients कि भाई आप दवाई बंद कर दो. When you pick up the phone and you say, see, ऐसे ऐसा है, ये है problem, but what you do as an adjuvant will work for the patient. Okay, our patients are accepting this. Let's look at some of the, so when you see patients with anxiety and ADHD, because these patients have a superfluous energy flow, we require them to channelize the energy. We begin with energizing activities, more dynamic activities, and we end with more calming poses. We focus attention on the sensation that they feel after the yogic exercise. We focus on abdominal breathing. This is a very simple thing which is overlooked in patients of anxiety, that we just tell them, just breathe abdominally, not through your chest. Guided relaxation for anxiety and progressive increase in the duration of exhalation. Most patients of anxiety breathe out very fast. So they will breathe in and just breathe out. So we say, okay, become aware and gradually increase your exhalation. It will reduce your anxiety. We have done this, we use a bag experiment because a patient hyperventilates and we ask them to breathe out in the bag. But we can do it on a more regular basis and just ask them to breathe out slow and long. Very similar to how we say relax. Now, we've been using these practices. They have adopted from yoga without understanding why we were using this. Depression and obesity, again, they can start with slow poses and gradually progress to more dynamic. So different from how we were dealing with ADHD anxiety. We can start with slow poses, go on to more dynamic poses. We use a sankalp or a resolve, especially in a meditative state, like let us say the phase of yoga nidra, we use a sankalp, because so that we have higher motivation, willpower. We use visualization in these patients to enhance self-esteem. So with that, I come to the end. This is my yoga teacher. He was a 4-year-old child who started yoga. He started teaching yoga at the age of 11. He's quite a phenomenal person. Without going to school, he knows 14 languages. So he says that yoga is not about running away from life. So we've always thought of yoga as something that sannyasis do, that monks do in the mountains. He says it brings about total awareness. It is about getting more engaged in life with total awareness, conviction, faith, belief, completeness, bringing the best of potential in yourself. With that, I come to an end. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kiran ma'am. I am glad that I got to listen to you today, because till now even I was thinking that we all do yoga only for weight loss. I'm sure 90% of us do it only for weight loss. We don't know much about it. And you've highlighted the way we can use it to change ourselves, our patients. That's a very good insight for us. And I think the next speaker, Dr. Nutan Palchand Pakhare, will help us with how to practice yoga in our clinical practice. To begin with, let me just brief you. Dr. Nutan Pakhare, she's a founder of AYG Academy, which promotes Indian health sciences, which is Ayurveda, Yoga, and Garbh Sansar. She's a big time trainer. She has 18 years of experience. She's a clinician. She's a physician. She works with ICYHC Kaivalya Dham, which is one of the oldest and leading institute of yoga in Bombay. She's qualified for an assistant professor from UGC NET for yoga. She's also a doctor, as she has done her BAMS, which is Bachelor in Ayurveda, Medicine and Surgery. She's MSc in Yoga. She has done her postgraduate diploma in yogic sciences and certificate course in yoga. And she's also doing counselings. She has been accredited with a lot of awards like Yoga Guru Award, Dynamo certifications, Panacea Excellence International Award, National Women Leadership Award for 2020. She's a very active person on social media, as she's been interviewed by a lot of people, by a lot of channels. And the last feather to her cap, I would say not the last, but another feather to her cap is that she has recently on 9th May 2021 published her book, which is The Ultimate Guide to Garbh Sanskar, Decoding the Secret Behind Nurturing Healthy Life in the Womb, which is like a great and tremendous work she's done in this field. Over to Dr. Nutan. She will help us with a lot of other things, like she'll help us learning how to, practice all this also.
Thank you so much. Such a brief introduction, and I am not, so much, big person. I am like, you, just contributing my knowledge to help our society. So, without much delay, I must thank you. For Bombay Psychiatric Society for organizing this Yoga Day event. Yeah, I wish all of you very happy International Day of Yoga. It is belated, but that's fine, not too much. And I congratulate Dr. Kiran. She has explained so beautifully this yoga. Means background is already ready, and this yoga is considered as, it is a practice as well as philosophy. So I think philosophy part has been covered by Dr. Kiran, and for me I would definitely like to take this opportunity to give you some experience whatever been told by Dr. Kiran. We will just experience by doing it. Okay, so we will do practice part. So if you are comfortable, I would like to see all the doctors, because, and I thanks all the doctors that you are doing so good work, and you also need some break. You also need somebody who can give you some remedies. So I feel so proud today that I am here today give you some tips. So I'll try my level best. So let us start some practices. I have made one pamphlet here just to show you. If I can share my slides, it's not slide but just the notes. Okay, so what we will do, like Dr. Kiran has explained, that we start with some stimulating small exercises which we called as Sukshma Vyayama. Okay, that is related to our finger movements, then wrist movements, then slowly our elbow, shoulder, and then breathing practices, then neck practices, because lot of stress mainly accumulate near our neck. Nowadays we are using lot of this online webinar and even consultation also going on online. So our neck continuously in working mode and like this. So there are a lot of load which comes on our neck that needs to be balanced properly. I think within half and I mean 30 minutes, after 30 minutes we need to take a break and at least check our neck and do some movements. So that I will be going to take. So these are some movements which we will do together, and then little bit standing, thoda sa bending, lateral bending, because most of the time our hands are always like this, right, naturally. So we need to little bit make this movement up and lateral part, so that our lateral body can be utilized and blood circulation can be uniformed. Okay, so these are some postures. Then there is a dynamic which sun salutation doctor has already explained. Nowadays chair yoga also came, and many people are practicing while sitting in your chair. You can practice lot of things. And candle trataka, which has been shown by doctor here. I will take thumb, means we do not have candle, but we can use thumb, and accordingly we can do some drishti trataka. Okay, and then pranayama and some laughing yoga if possible, time permit. And that's the way I have planned this practical class. So let's do it without much talk. So are you all ready? Okay, I cannot see screen open. I can I just assume that everybody is doing it. Okay, okay, I think Dr. Kiran is ready with the mat. Great, ma'am. Thank you so much. Let's do it. We all see each other and we will boost ourselves only. Okay. So sit straight wherever you are. If you are in chair, just sit straight. If you are sitting down, you can sit with the simple cross leg. First, we will do it on chair, ma'am. Yes. So just take your hands forward, all of you. If I can see you, I will feel happy that you all are enjoying this session and doing it with me. Now let's move this fingers, and we will just first become aware about these movements, okay, and then we will correlate with the breath. Like ma'am said that yoga is union of body, breath and behavior. So let us little bit keep smile on our face, that we are enjoying, so that the speaker also will enjoy to take your class. Okay, very good. Now let's now connect our breath. Okay, inhale and close and hold for 20 seconds at least, and then exhale, open. Why 20 seconds? Because it is said that muscle and mind is interrelated, and when you hold for 20 seconds, it takes, that muscle stretch goes to our brain in 20 seconds. So we need to hold for 20 seconds. Okay, let's do it together now. Inhale, close, exhale, open. Inhale, close the fist, and exhale, open the fist. Very good. Now let's do elbow movement. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Now take it lateral side, your elbow. Ensure that it is parallel to the ground. Okay. Now inhale, take half circle. Try to join your elbow front and back side as much as possible. Slow, steady. More slow way you do, you will realize the experience. You will enjoy the yogic experience. So you can correlate with the breath. Inhale, half circle, and exhale, half circle. Inhale, half circle, exhale, half circle. Now we will do it anti-clockwise. Three rounds we will do it. Okay, inhale, half circle, and exhale, half circle. Inhale, half circle, and exhale, half circle. Inhale, half, and exhale, half. Very good. Take your hands down, let it rest a little bit. Close your eyes and try to experience what is happening. You have used your finger, you have used your elbow, and then shoulder. Try to feel all those three parts, what's going on there, and settle down with your breath. Let your face relax, neck relax, shoulder relax. Your all other body parts should be in relaxed state. Your eyes should be completely closed. Just become an observer. Now gently open your eyes. Now we shall do again this shoulder movement. Are you ready? Okay. What we are going to do? Inhaling half round and exhaling half round. Okay. Because lot of stress is there over our shoulder, right? And you being a doctor, you listen so many people throughout the day, and lot of things, been carried on your shoulder. So you must just relax your shoulder by doing this shoulder movement, slow, steady, correlate with the breath. Now anti-clockwise, back to front. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Very good. Now we will do neck movement. Okay. So if anybody is suffering from cervical spondylosis or vertigo, try to avoid the round movement and the forward bending movements. Okay. Rest movement you all can do. Now just you can keep your eyes open, or if you feel to close, you can close your eyes. But mostly we do neck movements by keeping our eyes open. Okay. Now ensure that your body postures are relaxed. All the parts of your body is in relaxed state. Your breath is going on. Become aware of your breath, normal breathing pattern. Now let us do inhalation and bend our neck forward. Let your chin touch to your chest. Feel the stretch on your back part, back side of the neck. Exhale, come to the center. Inhale, go back and feel the stretch to this neck part. Okay. Try to feel the stretch. Then again exhale, come to the center. Slow, steady. Now inhale, go right. Your chin should be parallel to your right shoulder and feel the stretch on your left side of the neck muscle. And take a breathing, 1 or 2 breathing, normal breathing there, and then slowly take your neck to the front. Now again, left side, observe the posture. Your chin should be parallel to your left shoulder and take 1 or 2 breathing, normal breathing, wait there and slowly come to the center. Now we shall do lateral movement. Okay, neck lateral. First inhale and then do right lateral. Feel the stretch on your left side of the neck muscle and take 1 or 2 breathing, normal breathing. Stay there and then gently take your neck to the center. Now again, left lateral, inhale and stay there. Take breathing, 1 or 2 rounds of inhalation and exhalation and feel the stretch on opposite side and come to the center. Now one more round we will do this lateral movements of the neck, but this time we will be using our hands. Okay. Now inhale and do right lateral and take your right hand and bend a little bit and feel the stretch on the opposites. Next. Take 1 or 2 breathing and then gently leave your hand and then neck. Now again, first neck, then take your left hand, then bend and slowly stretch more. Feel the stretch and your elbow should be horizontal, not this, not that, not down, it's a horizontal. Okay. Take breathing and then first leave your hand and then neck. Okay. Now we shall do a little bit. We can stand and little bit we will do lateral stretch and upward stretch. Okay. Can you see me? Okay. So first ensure that you are standing on your 2 feet properly. Okay. sometimes what happens, our whole body, we give pressure on one side unknowingly. Okay, so ensure your 2 feet should be equally distributed by your body weight. Keep little bit distance between 2 feet. Now your hands should be side to your body, and now we shall do a stretch on lateral side. Okay, so you can do first lateral stretch. Take your hands, right hand on the right side, and then gently take up and then bend. Ensure that you are breathing properly. Do not hold your breath. Face relax, neck relax, shoulder relax, and smile on face. Slowly come to the center. Gently take your hands down and then keep here. Don't take it down immediately. Okay, this is how we can control our muscle. Okay, now we will do it same with the left hand. Take your left hand, left side. Yeah, now upward and then bend. Observe your breathing. Face relax, neck relax. Your elbow should be straight, ma'am. Elbow should not be bent. Very good. Don't bend forward, don't bend backward. It should be lateral bend. Now slowly take your hand and neck, then take your hands to the horizon and then down. Now we will do another round because it is said that at least we should repeat every action 3 times. Then it becomes, little bit, it starts giving us result. Okay, I don't know how much time I have here. I think very less time I have, 2 to 3 minutes. Is it okay if little bit I will cross some time? Yeah. Okay, fine. Now again we shall repeat. Now this time become more aware what we are doing it. We are taking our right hand on right side, then we are splitting it. This palm should be split and then up and then stretch and then bend. Okay, so like that. So one part we become more aware so that our mind will become stable and in the present moment. Okay, again let us get ready. Take your right hand, observe your breathing, relax your mind, face relax, neck relax, all body parts should be relaxed. Now split your hand, palm facing towards sky, and then gently take your hands up, stretch up, and then bend opposite side. Yeah. Continue breathing. Smile on face. Hold there. 1, 2, 3. Now slowly take your hands, wait there. Then loosen. Then take your hands to the split downward. Yes, and down. Very good. Now we shall repeat same on the left side. Left hand. Yes. 2. Split the palm. 3. Up. Stretch. 4. And bend. 5. Observe your whole body weight should be little bit tilted towards your right side. Breathe continuously. Don't stop your breath. Hold as per your capacity. Then gently come to the center. Slowly take your hands. Wait there. Then gently take down. Very good. So this is the Ardha Chakrasana, different way. Okay. Another way of doing Chakrasana is with both the hands. You can keep your both the hands here like this on your hip. Okay. And you can bend backward like this. Okay. So that way also we can do chakrasana, where we are giving, little bit relaxation over this part. Because in clinic, when you sit lot of time, our back is continuously like this, and unknowingly pressure comes on our tailbone. So this is very good stretch if you can do by standing. Yeah, this is one type of standing Bhujangasana, which ma'am said that Bhujangasana, we cannot lie down in the clinic, but at least we can do this kind of stretch where our upper part of the body gets stretched and backward bend. Okay. So this is the one. Another thing, we can do some breathing practices. Okay. And this Tratak. Okay. Concentration practices. You can give this to your patient also. Now effects, scientifically, whatever effects madam has already told, so my half work has been done. I'm just taking some practices. Okay. Now take your thumb. We don't have candle, so we can do it with the our thumb. Okay. You can keep your thumb in front of you. This is concentration practice. Okay. And it is preparation for your meditation later on. Okay. Because when you do this, then automatically you don't need to do meditation. Actually meditation kiya nahi jata, wo hona chahiye. Okay. There is nothing like that practices which is related to meditation. All the practices are related to concentration, dharana practice, and after that dhyana happens. Okay. Now let's take our thumb. Okay. Try to just look at your thumb. Initially, your hands will move, your whole eyes will capture all the pictures present around this thumb. But try to focus your attention only on your tip of the thumbs, or you can just initially focus on your complete thumb. At the same time, do not stop breathing. Okay, continue your breathing. Now gently take your this thumb towards your left side without moving, just watch this thumb. This way you are doing the movements of your eyes as well as your hands. Slowly take to the center again. And now again take this and just watch with your eyes without moving your neck. Very good. Slowly bring it to the center again. Now take your thumb to up and look at this thumb without taking your neck up. Watch your thumb. Slowly take to the center. Down. Watch your thumb. Observe your breathing. Bring it to the center and relax, and just close your eyes for a few seconds. Observe. Close your eyes. Try to observe your thumb with closed eyes. Relax your face, relax your neck, relax your shoulder. Keep breathing. Again, we will repeat this practice. Open your eye gently. Again, take your thumb with your left hand. Left thumb. Yeah. Watch your thumb. Now you know what is the process. Try to just distract everything around the thumb and just watch your thumb, mainly upper part. Now gently take this hand towards your right side and watch with the eyes without moving your neck. Neck should be centered. And then gently take your hands to the center. Again to the left side and just watch with the eyes. Take 1 or 2 breathing. Now take to the center, up, center, down, then come to the center. Gently again keep your hands down and close your eyes and watch your breathing, watch your parts involved, your thumb, your hands, your neck, everything. Try to just experience what is happening. Open your eyes. Nowadays we are lot of time we are just using this screen, so we will do little bit exercise. This exercise what we have done is also helpful for your eyes related issues, and it gives a break to the your continuous watching the screen. So another thing which you can do, just do this blinking 10 to 20 rounds, okay? And then do it with me like this. And then gently rub your palms and just cup your eyes, feel the warmth and let it remain closed for some time, and gently allow it. Keep your palms down and open it. Okay. Now we shall do another very important practice which you can do while sitting. This is called Jiva Bandha. This is very good for the face muscle, neck muscle and internal palates. Okay. You can just do tongue lock. It is called tongue lock. Okay, where it works on your this thyroid glands also, pharynx, larynx and everything, because lot of time you talk with the patient, you need to consult, so we use lot of time these muscles. So this muscle need a lot of exercises and discipline practices. This is what Jiva Bandha and Siha Mudra is. Okay, so Jiva Bandha you can give to the people who are extrovert. Okay, in your practice, if you want somebody to just get control, so Jivabandha you can give. And who are introvert or who are suffering from some depression or they are not opening up, so for them you can give this Siha Mudra. Okay, so it is called lion pose. So we'll do it together. It is little bit funny when somebody does, it looks very scary, but it's good to have it. Okay, now let's do it. Just sit straight, back neck straight, and just see me what I do. I'm taking my tongue and touching it to the upper palate. Okay, can you see this? It gives stretch to your all facial muscle. Okay, yes, very good, very good, very good, Sulbha madam. Yes, Dr. Kiran ko to pata hi hai, so I no doubt she's experiencing all that things. Yes, yes, very good. It gives stretch inside your mouth. Okay, now take it down. Now this practice again you can do it with another variation where you can just look at your tip of the nose. Okay, you lock your tongue and like this you are just watching your tip of the tongues, and then gently close your eyes and just close your mouth and experience the stretch. Face relax, neck relax, back relax, shoulder relax, all should be relaxed. Open your eyes. Now we shall do Siha Mudra. So Siha Mudra is something which I literally don't like to do it, but I'll do it for you. Don't click photos, okay? Or edit this when you play this. Anyway, I'm just joking. You can put it as it is. Okay. Now let's do it. Sit straight. you can do it, you know, when you do when sitting on ground, it's very nice. But if you are doing it on chair, so try to just spread your both the legs as much as possible, and your hands, this palm should be resting on your knees, and little bit you can bend forward. Okay, and then what you have to do here, in Jivabandha we have done that tongue lock. Now here you have to take your tongue out. Okay, so like this, I'm inhaling, and there is voice. Okay, voice comes. Yes, very nice, Dr. Kiran. So let's do it. And you can do another thing, another variation here. You can look up, outer side. Okay, like doing this Siha Mudra. Try to do it sincerely. Okay, okay, keep your hands on your knees. Okay, yeah, and straight, back straight, and then inhale. Ready? Gently close your mouth and eyes and just feel the stretch. Experience that stretch, relax face. Very good. Okay, you want to do one more round? Okay, let's do it one more round. Again, inhale and close your eyes and then tongue, and then sit straight and observe. Observe your normal breathing pattern. Gently open your eyes. Now we shall do one last Anulom Vilom Pranayam. Okay, what ma'am has told you about this right and left nostril. So for that we have to do this 2 fingers just like this, and this fingers are like, yeah, okay. Then you can just close your right nostril with your right thumbs and just inhale with the left nostril, and then closed your left nostril and exhale from the right nostril. Then inhale from again right nostril, close your right nostril, and then exhale from the earlier nostril. So like that you repeat 5 rounds and do it very slow, steady. Don't do fast, okay? And experience that inhalation and exhalation. When you inhale from the left nostril, you will feel little bit cold air entering. When you exhale from the right nostril, you will feel the warmness in the same air with what you exhale. After completion of 5 rounds, you can take your hands down and just close your eyes and feel and experience your breath. Inhale from right, exhale from left. Again, inhale from left, exhale from right. This is a very good practice, Nadi Shodhan Pranayama. And quickly you can do it after within your office hours. Okay. Once you finish, take your hands down and relax for some time. Now we shall end this session with 3 rounds of Omkar. So chant this Omkar like, you know, your experience that A, U and M sound. Okay. Makar should be longer. and a should be little bit shorter. So this is very good practice. Even you can suggest to your client, and this is not related to any religion. Everyone can do it. And if any such a things are there, you can use Amin. Okay, Amin. So even here, the later part of the words can be chant longer. Okay, and this Om ma should be that much as per your capacity, and it should be taper sound like tongue. And you should listen your own voice. You know, it should vibrate in your. So we will repeat it 5 rounds. We will continue same doing Om. Try to listen your own voice. Okay. Ready? Close your eyes. This is last practice and we will conclude this session. Close your eyes, relax, observe. First, become aware of your breath. Relax your face, neck, shoulder, back. And now we shall begin this Om chanting together. Inhale. Om. 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 Just sit in silence. Relax face, neck, shoulder, back, legs. Try to listen the vibration of Om. You can chant this Om in your mind without your voice. This is Japa Dhyana. After 5 rounds of Om chanting in your mind, just try to watch that Om sign in front of you without opening your eyes. Try to visualize that Omkar. Try to become one with the object. Instruct your mind that everything is happening as it is. I accept everyone around me and everything around me. I feel I am a lucky, peaceful soul. I can feel, experience myself. With this, we can just thank you, offer the gratitude to this Mother Earth, the whole yoga science, our whole universe is helping us to grow and evolve together. We are complete within us, but still we need each other. With this bhava, emotion, we shall conclude this session. I offer my gratitude to Dr. Avinash and all of you, all the participants and coordinator of this Bombay Society Association. Thank you so much. You can open your eyes whenever you want to, gently by feeling your eyelashes, eyelid, and eyeball. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nutan. It was really an amazing session and too much of relaxing session. I would say that we all will have a very good night's sleep tonight. Thank you, Kiran ma'am, for all the amazing philosophy, and thank you, Nutan ma'am, for guiding us to practice it. And I'm sure all of us have done it, even with our screens turned off. We have done it to relax ourselves. And I hope everyone will continue practicing this at home to feel more calm. Try it with our patients and feel better with this. If there are any questions, we can take them up or we can conclude the session. I think everyone is too relaxed to ask questions also. You're mute. You're muted.
I thanks Dr. Kiran because even I have learned some new, things in her presentation. That is Swana meditation, which is of
Yes.
Bihar School of Yoga. She has taken a lot of content from the, that books, 2-3 books. Even I have one that Yoga Nidra book with me, but that Swana ka I will buy it. Thank you for your reference.
Thank you
And
so
I really
much.
like your idea of Singhasan, and because I can imagine what it will do to patients of depression. And
Yes.
even the pharyngeal muscle relaxation, we hardly think about it. We keep talking all day, we hardly think about these things.
Yes. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Have a good night's sleep after a relaxing session.
Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Bye all.
Thank you. Good night.